Good morning. And we only have one case that we're going to do today. And unfortunately, it's a case that I wish I was in class to do, but we'll be able to review it tomorrow. First and foremost, we have to know how to say the name in here because it's going to come up in our oral arguments in about 2 weeks. It's not Ciraolo, it's Ciraolo. So California v. Ciraolo. Say it to yourself. Ciraolo, Ciraolo, Ciraolo. And this is a fascinating case way back from the mid 80s, about an hour and a half from where I grew up in Santa Clara, California, where the 49ers stadium is, in case I got any sports fans there. And the police receive an anonymous tip that Ciraolo was growing marijuana in his backyard. But there's a problem. The police are unable to actually see into the yard due to a high fence which surrounds the entire yard. So the police could, I guess, get a ladder or maybe go up on a tall building nearby, but they don't do that. Instead, they get a private plane and they fly over Ciraolo's house at an altitude of 1,000 feet. It's important to note that 1,000 feet is the lowest that any plane can fly over an urban area. When you're over a rural area, it can be 500 feet. And just so you know, Santa Clara is a metropolitan area. It's close to San Jose, California. So it's certainly not rural, and it's near a number of airports, the San Jose airport, the San Francisco airport, not far away. Okay. Now, from the plane, the police were able to confirm the presence of marijuana in Ciraolo's yard. So at that point, they get a warrant and they seize a number of plants from his property. Now, Ciraolo does plead guilty to growing marijuana, but he later appeals his conviction. So he says, yeah, I did it. But later on, he says, you know what? I don't think that search was legal to begin with. And we go back to that whole idea of the exclusionary rule, fruit of the poisonous tree. If you didn't get the evidence right, can the evidence be used against you? So the California Court of Appeals ultimately does side with Ciraolo. And they say, you know what? That aerial observation was illegal without a warrant, and they reverse his conviction. So the case ultimately gets appealed off of that appeal and goes to the Supreme Court. So the question is, does the warrantless, again, they didn't have a warrant to go up in that plane, aerial observation of Ciraolo's backyard from an altitude of, again, the minimum flight that you can be, 1,000 feet, constitute an illegal search and violate Ciraolo's Fourth Amendment rights? So we got to remember the CATS test from yesterday. And the CATS test, which came out of that phone booth case, if you remember, where they were planted sort of an eavesdropping device on the outside of the phone booth to get that gambler CATS. And they said the Fourth Amendment should protect you when the answer is yes to both of these questions. Was there a subjective assumption of privacy? Namely, could Ciraolo, I shouldn't say explicit, expect to have privacy in his backyard? I'm sorry about that. Autocorrect. Could Ciraolo expect to have privacy in his backyard? That's the first one. Okay. And secondly, was Ciraolo's assumption about having privacy in his backyard reasonable based on societal standards and expectations? I do not want you to Google this case. Okay. I really want you to think about your own experience with your own backyards. Okay. Do we expect to have privacy in our backyard? Is it a societal, reasonable belief that we should have privacy in our backyard? So really think about this. I don't care what your answer is, whether you think that California was right in terms of being able to do it, whether Ciraolo was right in his privacy, but I am going to ask you to explain in 2 to 3 sentences why it is that you believe that. And that's going to be ultimately your attendance credit for today as we move forward on the Fourth Amendment. Get this all done by 3:25. Thanks so much. Be good. Don't get suspended. Bye-bye.